as the time progressed, I was a decent student at best, decent. And I encountered a literature professor, Dr. Catherine Sepko, and she started asking me questions like, what are you reading? And she would invite me to her office to talk about learning. And I'm like, who cares? And she would actually, as time progressed, she would check on me in my dorm room. Hey, what are you reading? What are you learning? And I remember one day she told me, and this was what was reshaping for me. She said, Jason, listen to me. I think she even used the word son because it was very affectionate. We were in her office. She was an incredibly caring, brilliant woman. And she said, one day you're going to write books. One day you're going to speak in front of people. One day you're going to use your voice and it's going to be amplified on platforms. And the skill of learning how to read well and write well and understanding English and literature is going to help you do all of that. And I thought, I'm not going to do any of that.
In a corporate world where all employees have great leaders with no egos that create fun cultures where people can do their best work, the employees and companies thrive while doing great things for the customers, themselves, and each other.
Well, we know that rarely happens. I'm Jeff Palacio. I have been a leader for over 40 years for every t-shirt size company, from small 16 employees to extra large over 1 million. Please join me while I interview outstanding leaders that will share stories of great leadership and not so great. It will help you become a better leader while poking fun at all the crazy shit that happens in corporate America.
Hi, I'm Joe Deshawn, and welcome to the Corporate Couch with Jeff Palacio. Today's episode is brought to you by Palacio and Partners, providing turnkey podcast creation, hosting, production, promotion, and related creative resources for you and your business. Today, Jeff is interviewing Dr. Jason Young. Jason is an author, keynote speaker, and executive coach. His work is focused on transforming performance through deep expertise in leadership development, emotional intelligence, strategic implementation, and elevating the guest experience. He has authored 7 books dedicated to building growth and inspiring excellence across all levels of an organization. He is trusted by organizations such as Delta Airlines, Life Church, North Point Ministries, the Global Leadership Conference, Google, Audi of America, and many others. Jason holds doctorate degrees in leadership and hospitality, blending academic depth with real-world experience. Let's listen as Jeff talks to Jason.
Jason, welcome to the Corporate Couch this morning.
Thank you so much, Jeff. Good to be here, buddy.
Yeah, very excited to talk to you. Mark Schaefer, my good friend, introduced us. And I love your background, just, speaker, author, executive coach, facilitator, and just a fascinating background. So I know we're going to dive into it, but hey, let's start at your origin story. What was the weather the day you were born?
That's a good question.
I don't want to go back that far, but where did you grow up and what was fun for you growing up, Jason?
Yeah, man, that first question definitely has me on the corporate couch for a little
there you go.
therapy session. Actually born and raised in Atlanta, Georgia, still live here. Now, outside of going to school, I've always, lived and worked in the area and just kind of have inched my way into the suburbs just a little bit more, have a little bit more space and less traffic, which, you can't really avoid.
Right. Yeah. So what you loved doing growing up in Atlanta? What was fun for you as a kid?
Yeah, I think the moments I reflect, so I have 2 brothers. I think a lot of the stuff was around, them. I felt like if my mom was sitting here today, she would tell you like I did like a lot of adult things as a kid. And so like I cared about as a kid, don't ask me why. Maybe I do need to be on the couch, but I loved like taking care of the yard, working in the yard. I loved sports. My parents were really gracious in that they let me try baseball, soccer, football, track, golf, tennis. I mean, just let me try a lot of those things, what I liked, what I didn't like. As I got older, really into my teens, I loved the idea of business, even though I had absolutely no clue what it was. So, having little candy concession stands at the school I attended, I had two of those, and then hired students. Instead of paying them, I paid them with candy and,
Wow.
a lawn company. And so my mom, and this is true, my favorite time of year growing up as a kid, this may be telling about me. I love going to the office supply store to get supplies for the upcoming school year every year. And I loved getting a new briefcase. And I started carrying a briefcase to school in third grade. No joke.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah. Yeah,
Love
I
it.
know.
Love it. So like when you were 10 or 11 or 12, did you have aspirations as a child? Like, hey, when I'm a grown up, I'm going to do this for a living, or did you have any of those type things?
No, not that I recall. I mean, my parents
Yeah.
may shed some insight on that. I think as I started like into the teen years, I started noticing some things about myself, and just to be frank, even the things that I do today really started in that teen years. So two particular situations were really formative. The first, I had a really severe heart condition that quite frankly, it was a lethal heart condition, and was on the verge of it was on the verge of taking my life in a particular season. There's nothing that they could do. My heart had been going, to 180 to 230 per
Wow.
minute for 3 days, and the heart was just wearing out. Nothing else they could do, and so that was obviously, and as a teenager, really formative for me because it taught me the value of life and the value of now and the value of later, kind of all at the same time. And so trying to process that as a teenager was challenging, but it was really an invitation to think differently. So that was kind of one element. Very similar to that, as far as an opportunity to think differently. Some mentors started coming into my life that they invited me to leadership opportunities. I mean, when I look back, I'm like, why in the world did you trust me as a young teenager? But I'm just telling you, Jeff, like much of who I am today, much of what I do today, rewind back to those early teen years, was credited the health condition and a few people really in my life that mentored me, coached me, gave me opportunities that were much larger than me, but just coached me along in the process. And so those were, I would say, when I look back, had you know what you wanted to do, I don't know that I knew, but I knew it was related to leadership because there were those seasons that kind of opened my eyes and unlocked opportunities for me.
Yeah. So you're 18. Did you go right to North Greenville University? And what? And
Well, yeah, that's a good question. I was asking my parents about this not long ago. I don't think we ever talked about college. So college isn't like a thing that runs in my family. I think I had some ideas of what I wanted to do, medicine. I think I realized I'm not smart enough to do that. And I thought about, I loved golf. I was good at golf. I thought, could I go play like at Georgia Tech? I realized, okay, I'm good. I'm not that good. I'm smart. I'm not that smart. And so I think there were just a variety of things I was thinking about, but had no clarity, again, through mentors. One in particular, Sam Davis. He was going to a college. I was attending a church, actually. He gave me an opportunity to be a leader, there. And he said, hey, I'm going up to this university. I'm taking some students, want to go. And I'm like, I mean, I've got nothing else to do for sure. Never heard of it. Didn't know where it was. I really hadn't left the state very much. So I remember riding with him, and we drove up the hill on the campus. And I knew the moment we drove up on that campus, I hadn't met anybody there. I knew that's where I would go. How I just felt like that was the place for me. And I still believe that was the place for me. So did I have aspirations and dreams of going there? Never heard of it
right.
until Sam took me there, and I knew, I met the president of the university,
Yeah.
and really just those 4 years were incredibly shaping for me.
So yeah, so like most 18-year-olds, like we don't know what we're doing, so we're making big decisions. But and I know a lot of guests on the Corporate Couch, they changed their major at least once, maybe multiple times during their 4 years. But it looks like you graduated with English and Christian Studies major. Was that your original major, or did you change during the course of 4 years?
Yeah. This question, the answer to this question was one of the greatest trajectory shaping moments for me. And it all came down to another mentor at the university. So I originally said I was going to be a Christian studies major. Why I chose that, I thought I started getting clarity that, you know what, I might work in a church because I had interned in a church. And so I'm like, I don't know up from down. Sure, that's what I'm going to major in.
Right.
As the time progressed, I was a decent student at best, decent. And I encountered a literature professor, Dr. Catherine Sepko, and she started asking me questions like, what are you reading? And she would invite me to her office to talk about learning. And I'm like, who cares? And she would actually, as time progressed, she would check on me in my dorm room. Hey, what are you reading? What are you learning? And I remember one day she told me, Jeff, and this was what was reshaping for me. She said, Jason, listen to me. I think she even used the word son because it was very affectionate. We were in her office. She was incredibly caring, brilliant woman. And she said, one day you're going to write books. One day you're going to speak in front of people. One day you're going to use your voice and it's going to be amplified on platforms. And the skill of learning how to read well and write well and understanding English and literature is going to help you do all of that. And I thought, I'm not going to do any of that.
Right.
And so she just started, asking me these questions and helping me. So all of that to say, I changed my major from Christian studies to incorporate literature and English in that. And sure enough, fast forward years later, I do write books. I do stand on platforms and speak. And so I credit Dr. Sepko with, challenging me, inspiring me, encouraging me. And to this day, we still talk. And I graduated 25 years ago. And so I would say to anybody listening, when you think about, is it worth it to mentor someone? I chose a university because someone mentored me. I believed I could be a leader because someone mentored me. I changed my major because someone mentored me. I eventually wrote books and stayed on platforms because someone mentored me. So if you ever wonder if mentoring is worth it, take it from this guy. It is because of mentors largely that I am who I am and I do what I do.
Yeah. Yeah, no, so interesting. Yeah, many guests on the podcast and many of my friends. The key mentors are just so valuable in your life, whether they're real life mentors, like meaning you know them and meet with them and talk to them, or even books you read. It doesn't have to be a physical person; it could be a book type thing. So I think that's so valuable. So so you graduate with your bachelor's, and do you go into a job? Because we can get into your education because I think it's fascinating. You were in the seminary, and then you get your doctorate in hospitality, and then you get your doctorate in philosophy with a leadership focus. So I'm fascinated about all those the ministry thing and the leadership and hospitality. So you talk about that, or did you go right to get your first job, and how'd you get it?
Yeah, I graduated college, and not long after that, I had an opportunity in another state with somebody I knew to potentially do some work together, potentially write a book together. So on that trip, I was alone. I was attending an event because there was another organization back home that was interested in me launching actually a very similar event. So I thought, well, I'm in Oklahoma. I'll see what they do here, take some ideas back, in case they choose me, I'll have this experience to draw from. So the gal that was hosting me was the executive assistant to the CEO of this organization that had invited me to come out there. We're wrapping up my time. I'm headed back the next day, back to Atlanta. And I'm at this event, and I look in the back of this room, and there's a gal standing in the back, and I'm like, I'm going to marry her. Never met her, never seen her, you know. And I'm not, look, let's just be real, Jeff. I'm not I'm not Mr. like suave guy. And I'm not like a flirt. I don't know how to like pick up on
Yeah.
all that. I'm like, how am I going to do this, man? Come to find out that the gal that was hosting me was best friends with the young lady at the back of the room. And so Stacy, come to find out, Stacy comes up and they're chatting. We get introduced. Stacy says she was flirting with me a little bit. I had no clue. She was like, oh, this will never work. He's younger and lives in another state. I think she was just messing with me. And long story short, we ended up chatting. We ended up, dating. That was in January. We get married in December. And I had just started seminary a couple months before that. So graduate college, start seminary, meet Stacy again about the same time. We get married in the same year. And then 2 weeks after we get married, I start my first full-time job in a church. And so a lot of new happenings. So working on my master's, just got married, working in my first full-time church. I had interned and things of that nature. And so a lot of new, again, all of it wonderful experiences and learning. And so, yeah, I just started work on, Masters of Divinity. I believe, if it still stands, it's the longest master's degree you can get. It's a long one because of the hours and length. And, at minimum, it's like 3 years. And so I did it, a lot of it focused on like theology, Greek. The reason is because I thought that I would be a senior pastor. And we can get into like how that didn't work out. But that's how I ended up college, kind of master's degree, Stacy, my first job, all happened really within the first 12 months after graduating college, roughly.
Wow, that is so fascinating. So I believe, everything that there's no coincidences, right? Everything happens because, you believe in God or the universe or spirit or what the higher power, whatever it is. But do you think because you were more open to receiving and listening to the gifts? Because this is so great, all the things that happen and how you remember them, like going to North Greenville University. That was because of, Sam, and then the Dr. Stepko gave you a gift, right? She saw something in you as an 18, 19-ish year old that you didn't see, right? She had a gift, obviously, because she can, take this, piece of clay and know it was going to come out into a beautiful artwork or so, whatever you want the analogy to be. But so you think you had something in you that you could listen to these things, or you were just, I don't know. I'm just interested in your perspective on it.
Yeah, I've actually, my mom and I've had this conversation before. My mom told me, growing up, one of the things, and again, I didn't do a lot of things right, but she says one thing that I did is I listened and believed the wisdom that was being shared, whether it was from mom and dad, whether it was from, my grandma was a huge part of my life, my aunt, a huge part of my life, and listening to them, listening to Sam, Dr. Sepko, even the president of the university. And, there were other people. And I think listening to them, being open. But one of the things I did not know then that I really learned just in the last 12 months through my wife. My wife's a therapist by training. There is the idea of receiving is actually not an innate skill. It's a learned skill. And many people are not good at receiving. For example, receiving could be receiving a compliment. How many times do people pay us a compliment and we downplay it or dismiss it? We don't receive it, or someone offers to pay for something and maybe we, dismiss it. In fact, I was just, took some people out last night and 2 of the people would not let me pay for their meal. They absolutely would not receive that. Everybody else did. And so I think looking back, a couple of the things that I did, I listened. I believed the insight and wisdom that, was being shared. I think that I really do think I have a gift of discernment, and I think receiving well, so whether that's wisdom or opportunity or direction, that those elements really helped to, shape me. The times, Jeff, the times that I did not listen or receive well and try to figure it out on my own, when I reflect on those are the moments that got me in trouble. Right. So I think I can contrast what were the good moments and what were the not so good moments. And I think I would find, doing a little bit of homework, that there was an open, posture of openness, curiosity, listening, believing their wisdom and insight, and then receiving well whatever it was that they were giving or sharing.
Yeah. So interesting. So I've had Bob Berg, the co-author of The Go-Giver, on the podcast, and I'm a big fan of Bob's. The Go-Giver is probably my most gifted book to people, at least in the top 3 probably. But when I had Bob on the podcast, it's because I think that's the heart, he has the 5 stratospheric laws of success, I believe, in the book. And one of them is, gift of receiving, I believe, or something in that. And I asked Bob, that's the hardest one for me. And he tried to explain, but I would love any other insight you have for either your own experience or your conversations with your wife, Stacy, about it.
Yeah, there is this. I just was doing a keynote talk on Monday at a conference, and the whole talk wasn't on receiving, but there was a portion of it. There's this where we tend to be good at outbound stuff. And by outbound, giving, we're going to do for somebody else, or, even doing for somebody close to us or far away. It could be as simple as opening a door or letting somebody in traffic right in front of you, or, we're, Christmas time, giving a gift. There's these things that we give, again, outbound. But one of the things we're not great at doing is inbound. So it could be a compliment. It could be a gift. I've struggled at times with this because, it's just not an innate thing. It's a learned thing. And the only way to learn it is by practice. So when someone compliments you, instead of downplaying or dismissing, how do we practice it? Hey, Jeff, thank you so much. That was very kind of you to say that to me. So I'm going to receive it. Or if someone offers to pay for me on, no, I got it. There's sometime, and I think the reasons vary. There could be no, I'm independent and could do it. No, I don't want to displace you because you might need it. But what we don't realize is the person that is wanting to provide or giving to you, there's an aspect of robbing them of an opportunity, and it robs you of what it's like to receive. I mean, think about for me last night, offering to these 2 individuals. Everybody else accepted, not these 2 individuals, and my wife was there, and I'm like, man, I really wanted to, take care of them. And I think it was just hard for them, hard for them to receive, because it's we could take care of it ourselves. We don't need someone to do it for us. And you probably can. Heck, many of us can do that. And I think, and again, people watching, people listening, this next example may not be applicable to you, but I think a transforming part for me, that's just Jason Young here, was on the spiritual side. Learning to receive is so much part of my journey, with faith. And so by that, I mean, for me, I believe and receive that the Bible is true, right? And again, this is for me. And when I look at the character and the person and the actions of Jesus and what he offers to humanity, for me, I receive, that by faith. And so it's that but many times I hear people in the church world say, I just can't receive that because it's too good. And so I feel like I need to do something. There's this swap, there's this trade. Oh, so you're offering this to me? Well, I need to work and do something for you. And whether we do that with Jesus or we do that with other people, I feel like, oh, you offer me this, I need to offer you that. And so with Jesus, for me, it's receiving that freely and saying, thank you for doing something I could not do. So that's an example with him. Same thing with humanity. Jeff, thank you for, inviting me over to your house and allowing Stacy and I to have dinner. So it's realizing that it's not innate, it's a learned skill, and the only way to learn it is to begin to practice it. Because here's the thing, last comment. If we do receive, we often receive with guilt and shame. And by that, I mean, I feel like if I receive something from you, Jeff, or something from, somebody over there, I feel guilty about it. Therefore, I am going to want to do something for you. Or shame in the sense that, like, man, Jeff did that, there's an aspect of like kind of weightiness. So I need to do something. I feel guilty about what Jeff is offering me. And so I feel like there's this reciprocation effort that must happen to justify this moment of giving and receiving, versus I don't have to carry the weight of guilt. Jeff offered X. I receive X. I receive it with gratitude and not guilt. And we move on.
Right.
And so again, sometimes we do this, but it is really hard for humans to do this consistently, but we just got to practice it. And that's how it's learned and implemented when we, deliberately practice it.
Yeah, no, I love that. Thank you for that. Because I think, yeah, you're right. Most people don't have it. They feel guilty. I'm not deserving of it. Well, now I have to give a gift now because somebody gave me. I have to give that person a gift, and yeah. So it definitely. I learned that probably in my early 30s, and I'm better at it, but I think it's a journey for sure.
Yeah.
So you got a seminary, you're thinking you're going to be a senior pastor. Talk about, the pivot at some point, what happened and what did you pivot to?
Yeah. So, working in that church, had some great leadership opportunities, great shaping experience, had some hurtful experiences too. Again, people have a perception of church. We have to be reminded that church is full of people, humans, and humans do what humans do. And sometimes it's remarkable and sometimes, it's painful. And so in that, there was one individual that it was a painful experience. Everything else was, a great learning experience. I ended up leaving there and went to, met a guy I had really never met before. We met in a hotel lobby. We had a conversation and he was like, "Do you know Johnny?" I'm like, "Nah, I don't. He's this pastor at church." He's like, "You need to go there. You need to work there. I could just imagine your skill set there. You could build something." And I'm like, "I've heard of him, heard of the church, but that's all I know." Fast forward, they were opening up a 7,000 seat auditorium. And they needed an experience built for guests and volunteers. So it's this idea of how do we create an experience that when people show up, they want to come back, experience again and again. And then the volunteer side is we need individuals to help create that experience and using volunteering as a growth opportunity, right? So I go over there, join that team, worked there a couple of years, built that experience, built up, about 850 volunteers to create that experience. So, church of 15,000, did that and eventually left there. Again, a lot of learning experiences. We moved there with a little baby, our first kid, and then eventually moved back to closer to where we moved from. And just because it felt like my time there, trained up somebody who took my place. In fact, that guy is still there to this day, which is awesome. He was a great guy, great leader. And so, but I think for me, that was the very first time that I had an opportunity to work on something on a large scale, build something, which I love to do. I'm not good at maintenance or managing something that just needs to stay. So I think it was a good opportunity, build something up, pass it off, and head back a little bit closer to where we came from and do that elsewhere. But it introduced me to this idea, which is eventually what I did so much with work, books, even my first doctoral study program, was this idea of how do you create experiences that people want to come back to over and over and over again. So my dad was always good with customers he's automotive industry. My mom was in medicine, always great with patients. And so I didn't realize growing up I saw two people in two different industries doing this very thing that I got to be on the front row and experience. Like, they care about people and they show that and they talk about them with great affection. Inside the church, opportunity to build that with volunteers and guests. And how do we replicate that over and over? So we need systems, we need people, et cetera, for great impact. And that's when I began, to do more of and really kind of found a niche in that space. So I began to find myself in the hospitality, experiential space, and the leadership space, and figuring out how do these two worlds, coexist, and what does it look like when you weave them together. So left there, had another opportunity at a church which really was another life-shaping moment for me. You want me to tell you that story?
Absolutely.
The church is a Life Church out in Oklahoma. Craig Rochelle's a pastor. I originally got connected with them because they were looking at an Atlanta campus. So they're based in Oklahoma, looked at Atlanta campus. That was our first connection. So Jerry, who we're still friends to this day, and Bobby, Bobby was a creator of the YouVersion, which is Bible app it's been downloaded almost 1 billion times. And, so they decided not to come to Atlanta. We stayed in touch. He said, hey, why don't you come out here? And the process that they choose people for this particular role was what was reshaping for me. So let me see if I succinctly tell you. So you fly out there. What I didn't know, that there ended up being, I think there were like 30 of us. Maybe there weren't that many, but it felt like that. And really, it's like a 3-day job interview, man. We did essays, math tests, personality tests, all these interviews. And one of the interviews, they used a fart machine, and they just wanted to see, because they're a very playful culture, they wanted to see how would Jason respond to something like that in this job interview. Would it throw him off? Would he go with it? Is he playful? So really, cultural fit was a huge part. Fast forward to the 3rd day. They bring you into a room. They have this little trash can. They hold it up. You reach in, and there were a number of us. You pull out a topic, and you have 10 minutes to prepare a 10-minute talk. Once you're done with that, you go kind of in this little holding room. That's my word for it, holding room. And then they call you out, and it's like yay or nay, right? So if I remember correctly, I was the last person, and you tell yourself all these stories. They're not going to choose me. They probably chose other people. I should just go on home, whatever. I get called into their office. Remember Sam and Jerry, who, still work there to this day. And they said, hey, man, you got a lot of skills. We think you'd be a great fit here for skill culture. But, and I'm like, but what? When somebody says but, it feels like it negates everything else they just said. Right. They said, but you have no emotional intelligence. And I mean, Jeff, between you and me and everybody listening, I didn't have a clue what they were talking about. I said, can you give me an example? They gave me an example. And you know what? I sat there in the chair and I said to them, you are exactly right. They were 100%. Couldn't argue with them. I turned down the job and I said, I need to go work on that because I feel like I'm going to be more of a liability than an asset. And they're like, Jason, we believe in you. We think you'll be an asset. I said, I appreciate that, but let's talk again. We stayed friends. I eventually went back and built a leadership school for them that became their internship program that still exists to this day, and built it up. Eventually they're like, really need to move here. I didn't really want to do that. So a guy, Carlos, took it over, did a great job. And, it's, I would send my kids to it. It's a remarkable experience at a remarkable organization. Now I think they're at 47 locations across multiple states. So, but it was that conversation. Imagine being told in a job interview, you have no emotional intelligence. I didn't know what it was. They were right, Jeff. It has been that conversation transformed, kind of like Dr. Sepko. That conversation was transformative. It changed the trajectory of my life because it has been the single greatest thing I have focused on in my leadership development still to this day. And that was, 17-ish years ago, 15-ish years ago. And so that influenced my academic journey. That influenced my consulting journey. That influenced how I write, what I write about, things of that nature. So that learning experience in that job interview and then working there, incredibly transformative for me and influences much of what I do today.
I got so many things to ask about. So the first is, one, it was incredibly brave of you. I mean, I don't know how badly you needed the job, but I mean, like, you had the job, but
I
you turned
needed
it
the
down.
job.
So I'm like, so that, yeah, it's very brave. Is that when you kind of said, well, I'm going to learn all about EQ and become and get, improve in this?
Yep.
Is that when you went to Anderson University to get your doctorate in leadership?
Are you drowning in boring corporate communications? Palacio and Partners is here to rescue you. We transform internal podcasts from snooze fest to must-listen content that actually connects your team and strengthens your culture. Imagine podcast episodes that make your employees laugh while staying informed. Our founder, Jeff Palacio, doesn't just create podcasts, he creates conversations that break through the noise. Whether you're a growing startup or a massive corporation, we turn your company's story into audio gold. Leadership becomes human. Remote teams feel connected. Your message cuts through the clutter. Palacio and Partners, where corporate communications gets a fun makeover. Let's make your podcast work harder than your email inbox ever could. Jeff is happy to share his insights on podcasting with you. You can contact him via LinkedIn or schedule a Zoom call via the link in the episode description.
Is that when you kind of said, well, I'm going to learn all about EQ and become and get, improve in this?
Yep.
Is that when you went to Anderson University to get your doctorate in leadership?
No, that came later. I really just started, first rung of the ladder. Like, what is EQ? Where did it come from? Does it matter?
Yeah.
How does it reshape things, et cetera? So no, really, it was more of a, what do I read? Who's talking about it?
Yeah.
More so than anything. Doctoral work came later. So for me, it was just kind of self-learning, connecting with other people. Who are these people with strong EQ? How does it influence their decision-making? Things of that nature. So no, the education part came later. I ended up going with an organization, Talent Smart, who's, global leader in EQ, obviously took their assessment, went through their training program, do work with them still to this day. I use that as my primary assessment. Still friends with, VPs, yada, yada there. And so I think that was a good learning experience for me that then influenced, educational, doctoral work and things of that nature. So.
Yeah. So I've heard, I've been on a lot of job interviews myself. I've worked for a lot of startups. So I've, interviewed a lot of people, probably over 300 in my career. But I've never heard of the fart machine. So I'd like a little more, detail on how they brought that in. I think it's a fantastic idea. I'm not sure if it was Charles Schwab or there was some great founder that brought a prospect, a job candidate to like dinner or breakfast or lunch, and he would get there early and he would talk to the waiter and say, look, I want you to mess up his order. I'm going to tip you well. I just want to see how they react to you messing up their order, which I think is brilliant also. But you got to give me more detail on the fart machine.
Man, listen, Jeff, it was as straightforward as like I said it. I obviously had no clue. And I think I remember them like setting it off twice. The first time I was probably on my best behavior, because I'm like, was that what I think it was, and I'm like, okay, be professional here. You're in a job interview, right? You're on your best behavior because you need to, like impress them. And then I think I remember the second time and I just kind of like played almost probably like a little middle schooler, and just played along with it. And, and we had a good laugh. So fast forward years later, I ended up using it myself in a job interview.
Yeah. And
I remember I had a colleague come in with me and she was not a fan. We were on the same team and she's like, Jason, I just don't know. She was more mature than I was, obviously. And I'm like, oh, no, it's going to be cool. It's going to be great. Trust me, it's been used on me. And we were a pretty like playful culture too, because I like sarcasm and just kind of stuff like that. So we were interviewing this young lady, and man, I was so excited. I was probably more excited about that than anything in the interview. I wanted to see how she responded. So I pressed the button. It was remote controlled, obviously. And I put it right near me. So it was pretty obvious where it came from, because the girl that was in there with me, she's like, do not put that thing near me, Jason. I'm like, all right, cool. So I put it near me. I did it. And the young lady we were interviewing, her eyes like kind of shot over, almost very similar to my response. Like, do I say anything? So I did it again. And she was so kind about it. She goes, are you okay? And I was like, oh, what a wonderful answer. And so I thought, man, I'm just going to play this out just a little bit. My wife would probably kill me for doing this. And I said, I'm so sorry. I had Mexican for lunch and just miscalculated that going into this interview. And she's like, do we need to pause for you to use a restroom? And I thought, man, like she just played right along, ended up hiring her. Oh my God. She had a wonderful skill set as well, but I knew playfully she could roll with it. And man, of course,
what an empath. I mean, like, think about being empathetic, right?
100%. It was awesome. And it was so funny because the other gal that was on my team already, she's like, I told him not to use it. I didn't want to be any part of this. And, we had a good laugh about it. But it was, I can't say I did it all the time. I will tell you this, though. The example you just gave of Charles Schwab, the fart machine example, I've done other things like that. That was actually one thing I did in a job interview with someone, was a little bit of the impetus for my latest book, The Likeable Leader. Because in that interview, a buddy of mine, I may be jumping ahead, but since we're talking about job interviews,
that's very good.
I think it becomes memorable. And so my buddy Andrew said, hey, would you interview? Because I love doing job interviews. I love asking questions. And again, my background on human behavior and connecting with people and discernment, like I just love that space. He said, will you do a job interview with me? Got a candidate coming in. I said, yes, under one condition. And he's like, what? He was already, we were already great friends. And he goes, what? And he just kind of rolled his eyes. I said, where are we doing the meeting? And he's like, in that room. I'm like, perfect. I want us all to sit on the couch together. He's like, why would we do that? I said, exactly. Let's put the candidate in the middle and you and I will sit on the right and left. And he was like, but that's weird. I'm like, I know, exactly. And he was like, I don't think we should do that. He was more like straight-laced than I am, more professional probably. And I said, oh, that's the condition. He's like, fine, whatever. So the guy comes in and we do it. I know Andrew did not want to do this, but he did it. So he sat on one side, and Jeff, this guy we interviewed, he was so like, he just had to keep answering like you're at a tennis match back and forth. Sorry, I have on my eye. It was so amazing. I could tell he was like awkward. So I didn't let it go too long. The guy probably felt like it had gone for an hour.
Right.
And I said, how do you feel like this interview's going? And he's like, it's pretty, it's good. It's interesting. I said, tell me it's interesting. He's like, never really been on a job interview where we all sit on the same side of the couch together. Wow. And I just busted out laughing. I said, I'm just messing with you. It was totally my idea. Andrew's innocent. We kind of resituated ourselves in chairs. We had the rest of the interview and we get to the very end, and he's kind of, his body language has shifted. He's kind of more relaxed. He's kind of sunken in the couch a little bit. His shoulders have dropped because I want him relaxed, as I have one final question for him. I want him to think it's over. We get to the very end. I said, I have one more question for you. He said, yeah, what's up? I said, are you likable? Like, would I like working with you? And it was this moment that probably was like 2 seconds, but felt like 20 minutes. And I'm like, dude, just say something. Ended up hiring him. Great guy, worked there for years, great impact in addition to the team. But I asked that same question in every single interview. And really out of that interview, that's what got me on researching likability, which eventually became, over the course of a couple of years, became a book, and how important likability is on a team and leadership at home, things of that nature. But since we were talking about job interviews and doing like fart machines and all that kind of stuff, for me, had to sit us all on the same side of the couch and watch how awkward it was. But out of that came really a question that I asked in every single interview that eventually formed a book.
Yeah. No, I mean, I thought I knew a lot about the interview process, and I thought I'd use some best in-class techniques and to get to know people, and for them to get to know me and the team. But that's fantastic, all of those. But so, did you keep him on the couch the whole time? Did you keep him on the couch the whole time?
Him, yes, but eventually, again, I probably
you
let
guys
it go.
Moved off. Okay.
Yeah. When he was said, I've never been in an interview like this, I'm like, it's all good. I did this on purpose. I'm the guilty one. Then we kind of reseated ourselves in chairs and that kind of thing. So yeah.
Yeah, that's a funny interview story. I asked that in my early days. So I worked for a lot of startups. So you interview a lot of people because you're building a team and you're helping other leaders, your peers, build their team. So you're in a lot of interviews. But I remember using one behavioral question, which had nothing to do with fun stuff like fart machines or sitting on the couch side by side. But I said, well, how do you handle stress? So what are some of the things? And this guy looked at me straight. He's after a tough day, I literally go home and drink a bottle of tequila. And he was not joking. And I'm like, and believe me, I love tequila, but I was like, yeah probably a pass on this one.
Yeah. And by the way, if people are listening and watching, they're like, Jason, do you ask like real questions? 100%. I do ask real questions, but yet I like to also add the playful ones in there.
No, but what I love about that is it's so good because, and what I always tell people, leaders, that, you want to be your authentic self during an interview, and you want to show them the culture, and because you want to make sure they make the right decision for them.
That's right.
And they're a good fit. But what I loved about doing that, it showed like you had a playful culture. It was fun. Yeah. You're not going to be this stodgy, like you're thinking outside the box. Like, okay, Andrew, I'm going to do this interview with you, but one condition: we're sitting on the couch. Like, it's fun because and you're bringing your personality into the interview process, which is fantastic. I love it. I was going to talk about the book later, but let's go right into it. We're talking about now. So I believe this is the 7th of your 7 books because it went April 2025 was published. Talk about the research and the premise of the book and maybe some takeaways, because I'd love to talk about some famous unlikable leaders. But let's start with your book.
Yeah, I think a step before that. So originally in academics, so did doctor work in hospitality because, kind of mentioned before, I'm fascinated by how we create experiences that impact people, that makes them want to come back. So in the business world, it's how do we get a guest or a customer to keep coming back, keep buying more, stay connected to our brand, et cetera, et cetera. So in automotive or, big box, retail, a hotel, right? I mean, we see this play out all the time in our homes, right? When we have guests come in, we want guests to leave and go, man, I would love to go back, to their house because of just the experience, how they made me feel, right? So that's where that was first doctoral study, and a lot of my first books is how do you do that? Connected to that, I started thinking, is there a click down under hospitality? One of those was around the idea of likability. So if people want to come back because you create a hospitable experience, people probably want to come back. Again, this was a little bit of a hypothesis because there's something about you that they like, whether they can classify it, define it or not. That's kind of how I landed on this likability. So hospitality really started as the surface piece. A click down was like, what else is it? Likability. So started researching. Back in the day, Tim Sanders, who was an executive at Yahoo, wrote a book, The Likability Factor. Read that book. I'm like, okay, this is a thing. Started using it here and there. Again, just figuring it out, reading more. Over the years, more research came out. UCLA did an interesting research project where they gave a group of people 500 adjectives, and they said, when you think of someone who is likable, select the adjectives that you would attach to them. And it was interesting. They thought it would be like attractive, sociable, intelligence, things of that nature. Not the case. It was like sincerity, the ability to understand another human, aka empathy. And so it's like, well, that's interesting. And then I started reading how likability shows up in the judicial system, how it shows up that a physician will spend more time with a likable patient. I found in research that in marriage, when one spouse is, if you have the divorce rate currently, let's say is 50%, if one spouse is likable, it cuts it in half. If both spouses are likable, it cuts it in half again. So you go from 50% to 12.5% with no other reason other than the fact that both are likable. Now, here's the question. What does it mean to be likable? And what does it mean to be unlikable? So when you think about being likable, sometimes it's hard to qualify or to quantify. It's like, man, I just love being around Jeff. I don't know what it is. It's because Jeff creates this feeling. There's this like tangible benefit that I receive from being around Jeff. I don't even know what it is, right? So sometimes it's hard to describe, but it is something I always feel. If you go to a hotel, a shop at a certain store, whatever, you feel something. The flip side of the same coin, what does it mean to be unlikable? Well, it's actually easier to understand. It's the absence of care and sensitivity. The absence of care and sensitivity. So as I'm kind of researching all this, I start doing keynote talks for 3 years and small group things for 3 years, just testing out material. Do people like resonate with it? Is it like, is it any good? Is it believable? Does it reshape, their leadership? After 3 years, ended up, writing this book, the Likeable Leader. And really the premise is you want people to love following you. And likability is a huge component, and it's probably an underrated element in the world of leadership because it's not the normal thing we talk about. We talk about other stuff, but not this. And here's the thing. You can have a lot of the other stuff and not be likable and people not love to follow you. But if you don't have all the other stuff and you have this element of likability, there's a higher chance, higher probability that people will love to follow you. And so it's how do we help leaders, boost their likability so that people on their team, directly or indirectly, love to follow them. And that's really the premise of the idea of the book.
Yeah. So interesting. I mean, I love the title and the subtitle, becoming a leader people love to follow. You hear the stories, Steve Jobs back in the day, you hear Elon Musk, the guy that runs NVIDIA, I forget his name. Jensen's his first name, but they're basically assholes. Obviously, people work for them, but I mean,
right.
Do you have any thoughts on, and they did it. I mean, whatever you want to say about any of them, they're doing unbelievable things with their company or companies. So I just would love your thoughts on that.
I am not saying that you can't build a successful company or that you have to be likable to build a successful company. I think the differentiator that I'm talking about is found in the subtitle. A lot of those people, you don't hear other people say, man, I love to follow, insert their name.
Right.
That's what I'm saying. So yeah, can you make billions of dollars and build a global business and not be likable? Absolutely. People have done it in years past. They'll do it in the future. My focus is helping the leader and the people that follow that leader for there to be a different type of relationship and connection there, using the vehicle of likability, not in a manipulative sense, but it actually builds increased belonging, which I think people really crave. I hear some companies say, well, we're a family here. That always makes me laugh. I'm not criticizing it, but it makes me laugh because I'm like, well, which part of the family? Because I got a crazy one and I got a normal one. So which one am I teaming up with here? And I say that sarcastically, but I don't know that people are looking for another family to belong to necessarily from a work side of things. I think what people are looking for is a place to belong. So this idea of using likability as an element of creating belonging and connection can be really, really powerful. Call it what you want. But long answer to your question, I don't think you have to be likable to build a successful, but I do think likability is an element if you're trying to create belonging and connection that people love to follow you.
the Elon Musk biography by Walter Isaacson. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
the guy basically says, I don't care about social relationships. You should not become close to anyone you work with. Your
Right.
team members that work for you. I mean, it's so
Yeah.
counterintuitive to how I think. And this
Yeah.
guy Jensen at NVIDIA is the same way. I mean, it's just like, wow. But I like your family thing analogy, because a lot, we're family here. And, and I don't know who said it, but basically it's like, you're stuck with family. You're always but you're not going to be stuck with people, because sometimes people are going to leave you on their
Yeah.
own, or sometimes you have to make them leave because they're not a right fit, or, the business has changed and their skill set's not here. But, so people talk about team. A good friend of mine whose second book just came out, Mark Mears, his second book is called Love at Work. It's a fascinating book, but he doesn't even like the word culture. He goes, people want to belong to community. So when you said belonging, that's what it reminded me of what Mark talks about in terms of, building community and not necessarily culture.
Yeah, I remember being at an event recently. Dan Cathy used to be CEO of Chick-fil-A. He was there. Dr. Sanjay Gupta, who's on CNN, medical, their chief medical guy. And my wife and I were at this event, and it was on mental health. And it was interesting that they kept using this word flourish. Trilith Studios, which is a little bit south of my home, a remarkable place doing remarkable work. They make a lot of movies there. It's for creatives, but they do a lot for the community. And this particular experience was focusing on that. But they use this word flourish a lot. And I think as a leader, this is one reason I went and got this other PhD focused on leadership, really focused on leadership burnout, is how do we help leaders thrive, AKA flourish, right? Because so many times what leaders focus on is producing, productivity, oftentimes seeing people as tasks or a cog in the machine to get more done, efficiency, things of that nature. But what would it look like for a leader to thrive, to flourish, and model that for other people so that when they come on the team, we still produce, we're still efficient. It's not an either or. They actually can coexist, right? But how do we thrive and flourish? And what I'm hoping to do through my work is, and one of the books I wrote, Don't Burn Out, Burn Bright, is burnout is not a badge of honor. It doesn't mean you've achieved like mastery level. It's actually an embarrassment of your leadership because you didn't take the proactive steps to protect yourself and those around you, and you modeled an unhealthy way to make decisions and achieve a certain level. So it's not a badge of honor. It's actually quite the opposite. So you have a choice. Are you going to recover from burnout, or are you going to prevent burnout, right? And so it's really a choice that you have to make. And so maybe people are watching right now, listening. You don't have to burn out. Maybe you're in the middle of the season, because what happens is you go from stress to exhaustion. So unmanaged stress leads to exhaustion. Unmanaged exhaustion, which if you can tend to exhaustion, you can bounce back from exhaustion to a healthier spot. Figure out a few levers. Could be sleep, diet, schedule of working out, family events, friendships, going out, whatever. Just figure out the levers. You can bounce back to a healthier place. But unmanaged exhaustion finds him or herself in a place of burnout. And here's what's interesting about burnout. You don't bounce back from burnout. You crawl out because you got nothing left in the tank. And so, people never go, man, I just burnout showed up overnight. Like in the middle of the night, it showed up out of nowhere. Burnout doesn't do that. You drift there. And when you don't manage stress, when you don't manage exhaustion well, you drift into a place of burnout. You don't bounce back. You crawl out because you got nothing left in the tank. So it'll cost you more time. It'll cost you more money. It'll cost you more relationships. And my proposal is, why would I want to pay that when I can prevent it, when I can manage it and not have to get to the end? Now, if you get to the end, is there any hope for you? Without unequivocally, yes. It's just a little bit more work and a little bit more time, but you can do that. And that's the idea of the book, is what would it look like for you to burn brightly?
Yeah, I love that. I mean, and one of my pet peeves is, you ask somebody how you're doing, and how's it going? Oh, I'm busy. Like everybody's busy.
Yes.
Right? It's a killer. It's a killer.
Yes.
I'm like, oh God, busy. It's such a bad word. It really
Yeah.
is. You know,
Yeah. Busy or
yeah,
fine. How you doing? Busy, which
yeah,
is not an emotion. Fine, not
yeah,
an emotion.
yeah.
I know we're wrapping up. You'll find this interesting. I was consulting with global Fortune 500 organization one time. I was doing an 18-month project with them, hundreds and hundreds of their leaders. And I asked the same question over 18 months with a variety of leaders. And I said, you can work on this as a group. Here's the question. I want you to name as many emotions as you can. Seems like a simple task. What was perplexing, the maximum number of emotions that any group of leaders together over 18 months at a global Fortune 500 organization ever identified, 8. And what's interesting about that is when we can't name an emotion, we can't tame it. So we have to name it to tame it. And as leaders, it is our responsibility to better understand. This is where the EQ part comes in, to better understand self-awareness, right? It's like holding up a mirror. We're great at holding up binoculars that look out at people, that brings them closer to us for a nitpick. We're not good at holding up a mirror and doing the same for ourselves. Great at binoculars, not great with a mirror. Right. And the thing about emotional intelligence and self-awareness and identifying emotions and then putting a plan into place, oh, I feel frustrated, or I feel excited, or I feel, whatever it might be. And again, there's a spectrum there. If you can't name it, you can't tame it. And as leaders, if we can't name it, we can't model it. If we can't name it, then we can't manage it, right? And so I think that's in the world of leadership, in the world of burnout or likability or, building teams, being a leader people love to follow. This is one element that if we can name it, we can tame it. It behooves us to step into that space. Last thing I'll say on this is this. As a leader, when we talk about self-awareness, you cannot achieve that by yourself. You need the voices of other people to help you hold up that mirror, even when you don't want to, even when it's painful, and say, this is what we see. And then step into that, discomfort, because on the other side of discomfort is really this promise of potential. And here's the reality of emotions. An average length of an emotion is 90 seconds. And sometimes we don't want to sit in the hard because we're afraid the hard is going to last too long. The hard emotion is going to last too long. So if I sit in discomfort, feel it, it eventually will pass. And I teach myself, I can do hard things. I can sit in a hard moment because it doesn't last forever. And now I can work on a plan to respond to that, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, it's fascinating to me because I've heard a similar take on what you just said about emotions and the number 8. People can't name more than 8. I mean, I know you love your speaking and obviously the writing, but in terms of the leadership and executive coaching, what clients resonate the most with you? Like you love working with, and you can help the most. What does that person look like?
Yeah, I mean, I work typically mid-level manager, but typically, VP and above, C-suite, and sometimes it's proactive coaching. Sometimes it's I'm in a particular situation and I don't have clarity, or I'm in a situation I feel stuck. Sometimes it's HR driven. Quite honestly, it's this individual needs coaching, and so
that's probably not as fun as the.
No, it's not. And what's interesting is sometimes, many times, they don't know. I know more than they know, and so it could be a delicate thing. For me, it goes back to I'm not the sage on the stage. I'm the guide by your side. And I want you to feel like Jason is on this journey with me. A great coach should be great at asking helpful questions that unlock clarity, next steps, builds, trust because of confidentiality. I'm not trying to get you to achieve anything I want you to do. We're trying to navigate this thing together, right? And so, the industries I work a lot in, in Fortune 500, Fortune 100, churches, nonprofits, and really it's, again, coming alongside those high-level leaders and figuring out what it is that they need to figure out, clarity, strategy. It could be personal. I mean, a lot of times, quite honestly, Jeff, we'll start with work conversations, and often there's an aspect of personal life that comes in because it's impacting work or work is impacting it.
Yeah.
Right. So, for me, I love the coaching side of things. I have my own mentors and coaches. So some people, that's probably a big question people ask me. Do you actually practice what you preach? And unequivocally, yes. That's why I've exemplified throughout this whole conversation. I am where I am because of the voices in my life, because I too need clarity. I get stuck. I don't have the best soundtracks in my mind. I'm not listening to the right things. And so I need someone to help me, get out of this spot.
Yeah. Jason, I love helping two groups of people. One's that recent college graduate, or even today high school graduate that want to take the next step professionally and kind of enter adulthood, I'll say.
Yeah.
What advice do you have for them in terms of their first professional job search as well as starting their career?
So this is personal to me. I don't even know that you know this. So I have a daughter graduating college in May. I have a son that is a junior in high school. So I'm in the college world, about to graduate, close to graduating high school. And so for me, this question isn't abstract, but it's real, happens in our home. I think as a parent, one of the things that I could do for my kids is ask them really thought-provoking questions. Now, if you have kids, you're watching, you're listening to this, you have to calculate your questions, but they don't like a lot of questions. So it's like, don't pepper me with questions. So I might have like 2 or 3. So paying attention to the right moment when they're open, asking them very, very good questions. So I don't have 5 questions. I get to ask 2. Better make them good. But I think focusing on the relationship, being open to the moments that they are open, that they initiate, having a few good questions in the moment, listening very well to them, validating them, can be really, really helpful versus, hey, you should think, or hey, kind of more like finger pointing. But if I were to give a blanketed thought, I would say having a mentor and a coach, healthy mentor, healthy coach, can really be transformative for you. That's idea 1. The second idea is this is more of a permission giving moment. I think sometimes we put too much pressure on high school and college graduates that, hey, by the way, and the question is, well, what are you going to do next? Some of them know. I'm going to go to medical school. I'm going to be a doctor. I want to be a pastor. I want to be a nurse, whatever. Some know. Most don't. But I think in just the asking of the question, there is an expectation that if you don't know, something is wrong with you. And so what I want to say is a mentor and a coach might help guide you closer to clarity about what you should do, but don't abandon who you should become. Right? Because sometimes we think about what you should do, and sometimes we give up who we are or who we should become in pursuit of what we should do. So I think mentor, coach, give yourself a little breathing room. You don't have to have it figured all out. I tell my kids, you don't have to have it all figured out right now. It doesn't mean you're going to sit at home and play video games or, sit at home on the couch and eat potato chips and watch TV all day, right? You're not going to do that. But we are going to explore what it being next steps could look like. And sometimes you don't know until you actually try and you're like, ooh, I mean, I've done jobs that I worked at one, Jeff, don't judge me, but I worked at one job for 2 days where my dad ran part of a large organization 2 days. And I realized this ain't for me. And I'm like, right. I'm out, so sometimes you do have to figure out, those jobs. And you're like, okay, not for me. But I did that because I was in a desperate situation, and again, didn't have someone guiding me, and made my own decision, and that got me in that spot. So I used a lot of words, but that's how I would respond.
So that second group I love helping is everyone can be a leader, but those that take that career path, and become a manager for the first time, they're responsible for a group of people in an org chart. Any different advice besides, possibly getting a mentor or coach for that group of people?
Yeah, probably one piece I would add, and it could go to, high school grad, college grad. This would be applicable to them as well, but definitely for whether you're a first-time manager, leader, or an executive, I would say this, especially stepping into that role, because there's a temptation when you move from an individual contributor to maybe this first-time leadership role, managing, there is this temptation to do a few things, one of which is to prove yourself. And sometimes in an effort to prove yourself, you miss an opportunity to add value. So when you step into that leadership role, add value. How do you do that? Care for people, listen to people, support people, celebrate people. You don't have to be the smartest person in the room. cheer them on, invite them into the conversation. The whole thing doesn't rest on you. These are soundtracks we can tell ourselves as a leader. Oh, I should know all the answers. I have to be the smartest. I've got to have it all together. At least I've got to portray I have it all together. Like, these are lies that we tell ourselves that somebody started and we just bought into. It's not true. I did too for years. Versus, I don't have to prove myself. I'm already in this leadership position. So if somebody thinks I should be here, I'm going to step into this role and add value. And I'm going to do it through the vehicle. For me, number one, building relationships. Because if I can build relationships well, we're going to do great things. And I could then begin to do other things. But if I can't build relationships well, it goes back to likability factor. People aren't going to love to follow me, and they may not trust me. And if they don't trust me, we're not going anywhere.
Jason, you've been great. I'm honored that you came on the corporate couch with me today, and I loved our conversation. So thanks so much.
Thank you for the invitation, Jeff. It was fun.
Joe, as you know, working in a lot of startups, you get to interview a lot of people. And I'm always, I think interviewing is one of the top talents a leader should have, because you always want to hire great people. That's one of your main purposes in life. His fart machine interview story. I mean, when you can talk about a fart machine as part of an interview, I mean, it was just so good.
It's going to be a good interview.
Oh my God. Like, this is beautiful. I mean, like the fart machine, like, as you can see the reaction of the person and how they handle it. I'm like, it's brilliant.
Not only that, but you went on and on and on about it. It seems like you knew.
Oh yeah, I brought it back up because I was fascinated by it. Because you can learn so much about a person by how they handle that. Think about it. And then he was interviewing somebody, helping his friend. They worked together, and he said, "Look, I'm only going to do it one condition. We got to sit. We're going to put this guy on the couch, and we're going to sit on both sides of him." I'm like, this is so good. I mean, Jason's fantastic in a lot of different ways, but I did enjoy it, obviously, because I'm still laughing about it.
The whole idea of both of those is to take them out of their comfort zone, put them in an uncomfortable situation.
Yeah, and how they react.
See how they react to it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, Charles Schwab, he used to interview candidates at a restaurant, and he would get there prior, tell the waiter or waitress, "Look, I want you to mess up the order. Do not worry. You need to do that. I will tip you very well." Because Charles Schwab wanted to see how they handle it. The same thing with the farm. I mean, it's brilliant. I don't know if I'm going back to corporate America ever, but if I do, when I interview, fart machine will be included.
It'll be in there, right?
There's no question. And Jason, I'm sorry I'm spending so much time on this, wrapping up your episode, but it was just so good. No, I mean, he was fascinating. In third grade, he was carrying a briefcase to school.
Oh yeah.
He was selling candy, having his friends and paying them in candy. And oh my God, it was so funny. What else? I mean, how he met his wife. He just saw her at some event in Oklahoma when he was working at a church down there, and saw her across the room. Said, "I'm going to marry that woman."
I'm going to marry that woman right there. That woman. I don't know her name. Yeah. Never talked to her. I'm going to marry that woman. And
then he almost had he had a near-death experience at either 13 or 14. His heart rate was running at 180 to 230 beats a minute for 3 straight days. And the doctor said nothing could be done. And, the experience taught him the power, the value of now, the value of later, and, and life could be long or short. But that's a pretty big life lesson. But yeah, I mean, he's just, we talked about burnout and how burnout is not a badge of honor. Yeah, there was just so many good things. His book about, and all the research he did on likability of being a boss. Yeah, so I just had a great time talking to him, and he's fascinating. I'm grateful I was introduced to him.
I thought he was a great interview, and an incredibly interesting interview, and one that kept going in different directions all the time, that you never knew where it was going to go to next. I personally got a lot of things from the interview that not everybody else would. For one thing, talking about being as a kid and running his own business, selling candy and paying people in candy, that sounds like the kind of thing that I would have done, carrying a briefcase to third grade, my mother told me that I was never a child, because I never played with anybody when I was a child.
And you like own office supply stores like he did.
Office supply stores just like he did. There are so many things like that. And then he's from Atlanta, and of course I lived in Atlanta recently just for 6 years. And so he talked about Atlanta-ish things, and Atlanta in the church industry, which I was very, very connected to while I was in Atlanta. So he brought up a lot of things like that was very familiar to me. One of the things that he talked about EQ, emotional intelligence, and he said, he had somebody tell him, you don't have any, you don't have any emotional intelligence. And I think if somebody would have told me that, I don't know what I would have done. I would have been shocked, surprised, offended. I don't know, but he kind of took it on himself to end up including that in his books. And now where he talks about in his interviews, you were talking about the famous stink bomb machine. But he said one of the things he asks are you likable? If I were to hire you, would I like working with you? And I think that's an incredibly insightful question to ask on a job interview. Would I even like you? Do you want to be surrounded by people that are likable or people that you would enjoy being around? I think that's a very, very insightful thing to be looking at. So it was a great interview. Loved it. We had a good time. You need to have a lot more interviews like him.
Yeah, and I just, like I said, I loved his ability to laugh at himself and his lifelong theme of, mentorship, receiving, and flourishing. I mean, what a great message. And I'm excited to see what else he's going to be doing besides authoring, speaking, podcasting. Speaking of that, Joe, what's going on in the life of Joe right now?
Well, I was printing a document from my computer recently. It was a pretty big, long document. Suddenly I heard something coming out of the printer. It was music, but it was raucous music coming out of the printer. You know what was happening?
No idea.
The paper was jamming.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of The Corporate Couch. If you enjoy the podcast, I would love for you to take 2 minutes out of your day to rate us 5 stars and write a review. Please join me next week to learn from another great leader sharing their professional journey and insights.